A billionaire father took his son luxury clothes shopping, ready to teach him the meaning of success. But the moment they stepped into that high-end boutique, he noticed a struggling mother and her little girl quietly standing beside the clearance rack, their clothes torn, their faces apologetic, like they didn't belong. While his son reached for designer jackets, the billionaire watched the little girl tug on her mother's sleeve, whispering that her shoes were hurting because they were too small. And in that instant, everything changed. Because what this father did next didn't just shock the store. It became the lesson his son would remember for the rest of his life. If this already touched your heart even a little, pause and subscribe. Too many people scroll past lessons we all need to hear. Don't be one of them. The Billionaire in Boston carried the scent of leather and expensive cologne as Julian Cross pushed open the glass doors of Madeline and Company, one of Newbury Street's most exclusive boutiques. His 6-year-old son, Oliver, clutched his hand with the kind of eager energy only children possess when promised something new. "Dad, can I pick anything?" Oliver's voice was bright, untouched by the weight his father carried daily: board meetings, acquisitions, the suffocating pressure of running a tech empire worth billions. Julian smiled, ruffling the boy's dark hair. "Within reason, buddy. We're here to find you something sharp for Grandma's gala, remember?" Oliver nodded, already darting toward a display of tailored blazers sized for children who'd never known hunger, never worn hand-me-downs, never understood what it meant to go without. Julian followed, but his attention snagged on movement near the back, a woman, thin as winter branches, standing beside the clearance rack with her daughter. The little girl couldn't have been older than 5, her coat patched in 3 places, her shoes split along the seams, exposing pale, sockless feet. The woman's hands trembled as she flipped through price tags, her lips moving in silent arithmetic, her eyes distant with the kind of exhaustion that sleep couldn't fix. Julian's chest tightened. He'd seen poverty before. Hell, he'd lived it. Grew up in a 1-bedroom apartment in South Boston where his mother worked 3 jobs just to keep the lights on. But somewhere along the way, between his first million and his first billion, he'd forgotten what it looked like up close. "Mommy," the little girl whispered, tugging her mother's sleeve. "My shoes hurt, they are too small again." The woman knelt, her face crumpling for just a second before she forced a smile. "I know, baby, just a little longer, okay? We'll figure it out." "I don't need new ones," the girl said quickly, her voice so earnest it cracked something open inside Julian's ribs. "I just want you to stop being sad." The woman pulled her daughter close, hiding her face in the child's hair, her shoulders shaking silently. Across the store, Oliver held up a navy blazer, grinning. "Dad, this one." But Julian wasn't looking at his son anymore. He was looking at them, and suddenly, everything he thought he knew about wealth felt hollow. If you saw someone struggling like this in public, would you step in, or keep walking? Drop your honest answer below. I'm curious what you'd really do. Julian's feet moved before his brain caught up. He crossed the polished marble floor, past racks of silk scarves and Italian loafers, past salespeople who barely glanced at the woman and her daughter because they knew. They always knew who had money and who didn't. "Excuse me," Julian said softly, stopping a respectful distance away. The woman's head snapped up, her eyes wide and guarded. She pulled her daughter closer instinctively, like she'd learned long ago that strangers didn't approach without wanting something. "I'm sorry to bother you," Julian continued, keeping his voice low, non-threatening. My son and I are shopping today, and I couldn't help but notice." He hesitated, searching for words that wouldn't sound like pity. "Your daughter mentioned her shoes." The woman stood slowly, her spine straightening with a dignity that wealth could never buy. "We're fine, thank you. I didn't mean to. We don't need charity." Her voice was quiet but edged with steel, the kind forged by years of people looking through her like she was invisible, or worse, looking at her like she was a problem to be solved. Julian nodded, retreating a step. "I understand, I'm sorry." But as he turned to leave, the little girl spoke. "Mister." Her voice was small, hopeful. "Is that your son?" Julian glanced back at Oliver, who was now trying on a blazer 2 sizes too big, the sleeves hanging past his hands. "Yeah, that's Oliver." The girl smiled, genuinely smiled, and it was like watching sunlight break through storm clouds. "He looks nice. Does he like making friends?" Something shifted in the air. The woman's hand tightened on her daughter's shoulder, her expression softening just slightly, enough for Julian to see the exhaustion beneath the armor, the fear beneath the pride. "My daughter, Lily, she..." The woman's voice cracked. "She doesn't get to play with other kids much. We move around a lot, and I work nights. so. She trailed off, looking away. Julian's throat tightened. Oliver doesn't have many friends either. I'm not home enough, and when I am, I'm usually. He exhaled. Distracted. Their eyes met, two parents drowning in different oceans, suddenly realizing they were both gasping for the same air. I'm Julian, he said, extending his hand. She hesitated, then took it. Her palm was rough, calloused, nothing like the soft hands of the women he usually met at galas and charity dinners. Anna. Anna, he repeated, and the name felt important somehow, like learning it meant something more than politeness. Across the store, Oliver waved. Dad, can Lily come see the blazers? Lily looked up at her mother, her eyes pleading. Anna's lips trembled. We really can't afford. No strings, Julian interrupted gently. Just two kids being kids for a few minutes. The world's hard enough. Let them have this. Anna stared at him for a long moment, searching his face for the catch, the angle, the inevitable disappointment. But all she found was sincerity. Okay, she whispered. Just for a few minutes. And as Lily ran toward Oliver, her two small shoes slapping against the floor, something cracked open in that boutique, something neither Julian nor Anna had felt in years. Hope. Lily reached Oliver, her cheeks flushed with excitement, and for a moment, the boutique transformed, no longer a temple of wealth and exclusivity, but just a place where two children laughed over blazers with sleeves too long and ties that dragged on the floor. Anna stood frozen, watching her daughter smile, really smile, for the first time in weeks, maybe months. Julian watched too, his hands in his pockets, feeling the weight of his platinum credit card against his fingers like a burden he suddenly wanted to shed. But then reality crept back in. A saleswoman approached, her smile polite but cold, her eyes sweeping over Anna's patched coat and worn jeans with barely concealed distaste. Those items your daughter is touching are part of our premium children's collection. They are quite delicate, so if you're not planning to purchase. She's with me, Julian cut in, his tone sharp enough to make the woman blink. Of course, Mr. Cross, I didn't realize. You didn't realize what? That she's a human being who deserves basic respect. His voice was low but lethal. Years of boardroom negotiations had taught him how to wield words like weapons. The saleswoman paled, stammering an apology before retreating. Anna's face burned with humiliation. She grabbed Lily's hand, pulling her away from Oliver. We should go. Anna, wait. No. She shook her head, tears pooling in her eyes but refusing to fall. I appreciate what you tried to do, but this, she gestured around the boutique, at the marble floors and crystal chandeliers, at the life she'd never be able to give her daughter. This isn't our world, we don't belong here, and pretending otherwise just makes it hurt more when we have to leave. Julian stepped closer, desperation edging into his voice. You belong anywhere you choose to be. That woman had no right. She had every right, Anna interrupted, her voice breaking. Because she's correct, I can't afford anything here. I can barely afford groceries, and standing here pretending like we're equals is just. She exhaled shakily. It's cruel. Lily tugged her mother's hand, confused. Mommy, why are we leaving? Oliver wanted to show me the toy section. Not today, baby. Oliver's face fell. He looked up at his father, searching for an explanation that made sense. Dad, why is she crying? Julian didn't have an answer. Anna turned toward the door, her shoulders hunched against invisible blows, her daughter trailing behind, already learning that some places weren't meant for people like them. But just as they reached the exit, Julian called out. Anna, please, just wait. She stopped but didn't turn around. I know you don't want charity, he said, his voice steady now, deliberate. But what if it's not charity? What if it's something else? Anna glanced back, her expression guarded. Like what? Julian hesitated, the answer forming in his mind even as he spoke it aloud. A chance for both of us to remember what actually matters. She frowned, suspicion flickering across her face. What are you talking about? I don't know yet, he admitted. But I think we both need this more than we realize. Anna stared at him, torn between pride and the aching hope that maybe, just maybe, someone actually saw her as more than a charity case. Finally, she whispered, 1 hour, that's all I can give you. Julian nodded, relief flooding through him. 1 hour. 1 hour. Julian didn't waste it. He led them to the children's section, where Oliver and Lily immediately gravitated toward a display of interactive toys, building blocks, miniature race cars, puzzles that lit up when completed. The children's laughter filled the space, uninhibited and pure, while Anna stood off to the side, arms crossed, her body language screaming discomfort. Julian approached carefully, like one might approach a wounded animal. They are good together. Anna nodded, her eyes never leaving Lily. She doesn't get this often, normalcy. I mean, most days, it's just survival. I understand that more than you think. She glanced at him, skeptical. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you've never had to choose between paying rent or feeding your child. You've never had to water down soup so it lasts 3 days instead of 1. Julian's jaw tightened. You're right, I haven't, not anymore. But I grew up in Southie, in a place where my mom worked herself into the ground just so I could have a winter coat that wasn't full of holes. He paused, the memories sharp even after all these years. She died when I was 17, heart attack brought on by exhaustion and stress. I built my company because I swore I'd never feel that powerless again. Anna's expression softened, just slightly. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm telling you because I want you to know that I see you, not as some project or tax write-off, but as someone who's fighting a battle most people don't have the courage to fight. She looked away, blinking rapidly. Fighting doesn't feel courageous when you're losing. You're not losing, Julian said firmly. You're still here. Lily's still smiling. You're still showing up every day even when it would be easier to give up. That's not losing, Anna. That's winning in the only way that actually counts. Before she could respond, Oliver ran over, dragging Lily by the hand. Dad, can we get lunch together? Please. Lily said she's never been to a fancy restaurant, and I told her you know all the best places. Anna immediately shook her head. Oliver, that's sweet, but we can't. Why not? Julian interrupted, his eyes locked on hers. It's just lunch, no strings, no ulterior motives, just 2 families sharing a meal. I can't afford. I'm not asking you to. Anna's pride flared again, her voice sharp. I don't take handouts. Then don't think of it as a handout, Julian said evenly. Think of it as me being selfish, because honestly, I don't want to eat another meal alone with only my thoughts for company. I want to sit across from someone real, someone who doesn't care about my portfolio or my stock options, someone who'll tell me the truth even when it's uncomfortable. Anna stared at him, her defenses crumbling inch by inch. Lily tugged her sleeve. Please, Mommy, I'm really hungry, and Oliver says they have mac and cheese. Anna closed her eyes, exhaling slowly. 1 meal. Julian smiled. 1 meal. But as they walked out of the boutique together, children skipping ahead, parents trailing behind, both of them knew it was already more than that. It was the beginning of something neither of them could name yet. Something fragile. Something necessary. Something that felt dangerously close to hope. The restaurant Julian chose wasn't ostentatious. No crystal chandeliers or waiters in tuxedos, just a cozy bistro tucked into a quiet corner of Back Bay, the kind of place where families actually ate instead of performed. Oliver and Lily sat across from each other, giggling over shared fries and chocolate milkshakes, their joy so effortless it made the adults ache. Anna picked at her salad, her fork moving food around more than actually eating it. Julian noticed but said nothing, recognizing the habit of someone who'd trained themselves to need less. So, he ventured carefully, how long have you been in Boston? Anna hesitated, her walls still partially intact. 8 months, we moved from Baltimore after. She trailed off, her eyes distant. After what? She set down her fork, her hands trembling slightly. After my husband died. The words landed heavy between them. Julian leaned back, giving her space. I'm sorry. Construction accident, Anna continued, her voice flat, mechanical, like she'd told this story too many times and had learned to strip the emotion out just to survive it. He was working on a high-rise in downtown Baltimore, 20 stories up. The safety harness failed, and She swallowed hard. He fell. Lily glanced over, her smile fading when she saw her mother's expression. Mommy! Anna forced brightness into her voice. I'm okay, baby, keep eating. Lily turned back to Oliver, but her laughter was quieter now. Julian waited, letting the silence stretch until Anna was ready to continue. They gave me $48,000, she said bitterly. That's what my husband's life was worth according to the settlement, $48,000, minus legal fees, minus debts he'd racked up trying to keep us afloat when work was slow. By the time everything was paid, I had $11,000 left. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. $11,000 to raise a child, to start over, to somehow build a future out of ashes. Julian's chest constricted. And Lily's medical bills. Anna's eyes snapped to his, sharp and wary. How did you? I saw the way she coughed in the boutique, Julian said gently. And the way you looked at her like you were memorizing her face, like you were afraid. She has chronic asthma, Anna whispered, tears finally spilling over. Severe episodes that land her in the ER at least once a month. I can't afford insurance, so every visit costs hundreds, sometimes thousands, and I'm drowning. Julian, I work 2 jobs. I skip meals. I haven't bought myself anything new in over a year, and it's still not enough. Her voice broke completely. I'm failing her. Julian reached across the table, his hand covering hers. You're not failing anyone. Then why does it feel like I am? Anna pulled her hand away, wiping her eyes roughly. Why does every day feel like I'm one crisis away from losing everything? Because the system is broken, Julian said, anger simmering beneath his calm exterior. Because people like you shouldn't have to choose between rent and medicine, between food and electricity. It's not fair, and it's not right. Anna laughed bitterly. Fairness is a luxury I can't afford. Julian leaned forward, his voice low and intense. What if you didn't have to afford it? What if someone actually helped carry the weight? Anna met his gaze, suspicion and longing warring in her eyes. Why would you do that? You don't know me. Maybe that's exactly why, Julian said softly. Because you don't want anything from me except to be left alone, and that's the first honest thing I've encountered in years. Anna opened her mouth to respond, but Oliver's voice cut through the moment. Dad, Lily says her birthday is next week. Can we throw her a party? Both adults turned, watching as Lily blushed, shaking her head. I wasn't asking for. I think that's a great idea, Julian said, his eyes still on Anna. Anna's jaw tightened. Julian. One party, he said. Just let her be a kid for one day. Anna looked at her daughter, saw the hope blooming on her face, and felt her resolve crumble. One party, she whispered. But she knew, they both knew, it was already so much more than that. The party happened on a Saturday afternoon in Julian's penthouse overlooking Boston Harbor. Anna had resisted, of course she had, but Julian wore her down with logic instead of emotion. It's already decorated from Oliver's birthday last month. The caterer owes me a favor, and honestly, the place feels too empty anyway. When Anna and Lily arrived, stepping out of the elevator into the sprawling apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows and art that cost more than most people's homes, Lily gasped. Mommy, are we in a castle? Anna's throat tightened, overwhelmed by the sheer excess of it all, the marble countertops, the grand piano in the corner, the view that stretched across the entire city like Julian owned the horizon itself. But then Oliver ran up, grabbing Lily's hand. Come on, we set up games in the playroom. And just like that, the castle became a playground. Julian appeared beside Anna, 2 glasses of wine in hand. You look like you're about to bolt. I'm considering it, she admitted, accepting the glass but not drinking. This is a lot. It's just space, Julian said, leaning against the counter. Expensive space, sure, but it doesn't mean anything without people in it. Most nights, it's just me and Oliver rattling around like ghosts. Anna studied him, really looked at him for the first time without the armor of suspicion. You're lonely. It wasn't a question. Julian's smile was sad. Turns out you can have everything and still feel empty. They stood in silence, watching through the doorway as the children played, building forts out of couch cushions, laughing so hard they collapsed into piles of giggles. She hasn't laughed like that since before her father died, Anna whispered. Oliver hasn't either, not since his mother passed. Anna turned sharply. I didn't know you'd lost. 3 years ago, Julian said quietly. Complications during childbirth. They gave me a choice, and I. His voice cracked. I chose Oliver, and I've carried that guilt every day since. Anna's hand found his, squeezing gently. She would have made the same choice. I know, Julian said. But knowing doesn't make it hurt less. They stood there, 2 broken people holding each other's grief without words, and somehow it felt like the most honest conversation either of them had ever had. Later, after cake and presents, Julian had bought Lily a dozen books and a new pair of shoes that actually fit. The children fell asleep on the couch, tangled together like they'd known each other for years instead of days. Anna moved to wake Lily, but Julian stopped her. Let them rest. You too, you look exhausted. I'm always exhausted. Then sit, he said, guiding her to the other couch. Just for a minute. Anna sank into the cushions, her body finally surrendering to the fatigue she'd been fighting for months. This is dangerous. What is? This apartment, The way you make me feel like maybe I'm not drowning alone anymore. She looked at him, eyes glistening. Because eventually, I'll have to leave, and going back to reality after this, it's going to hurt. Julian sat beside her, close but not touching. What if you didn't have to go back? Anna's breath caught. Julian, I'm not proposing anything crazy, he said quickly. I just mean, what if we helped each other? You're raising Lily alone, I'm raising Oliver alone. What if we didn't have to do it alone anymore? You're talking about, what, exactly? Julian ran a hand through his hair, suddenly uncertain. I don't know, friendship, partnership, maybe something more eventually, but only if. Stop, Anna interrupted, her voice shaking. You can't just offer me a life raft and expect me not to grab it desperately. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, Julian said. But maybe we can make it a little less unfair together. Anna stared at him, tears streaming down her face, every logical reason to say no warring with the desperate, aching need to say yes. Finally, she whispered, I'm scared. Me too, Julian admitted. What if we mess this up? What if the kids get hurt? What if we don't? Julian countered. What if this is exactly what all four of us need? Anna looked at their children, sleeping peacefully, and felt something shift inside her, some fundamental reordering of what she thought was possible. Okay, she breathed. But we take it slow. Julian smiled. As slow as you need. 3 weeks later, everything fell apart. It started with a phone call, Anna's former landlord in Baltimore, demanding back rent she thought had been forgiven, threatening legal action, dragging up debts she'd believed were buried with her old life. She stood in her tiny Dorchester apartment, phone pressed to her ear, watching her carefully constructed stability crumble. I paid what I owed. We had an agreement. Verbal agreements don't mean anything in court, Ms. Reeves. You owe $4,000, and if I don't receive payment in 2 weeks, I'm filing a lawsuit. The line went dead. Anna sank onto her second-hand couch, head in her hands, the weight of it all crushing her lungs. $4,000. It might as well have been $4 million. She thought of Julian, of his penthouse and his endless resources, of how easy it would be to ask. And that's exactly why she couldn't. Because the moment she asked, everything changed. She became the charity case she'd spent her entire life refusing to be, the woman who needed saving, the burden he'd eventually resent. So she didn't call. Instead, she picked up extra shifts at both jobs, working 18-hour days, leaving Lily with a neighbor she barely trusted because she had no other choice. Julian noticed immediately. He texted, "Haven't heard from you in days, everything okay?" Anna replied, "Just busy. Talk soon." But soon never came. When he showed up at her apartment unannounced, finding Lily alone with the elderly neighbor who'd fallen asleep on the couch, his anger was immediate and volcanic. "Where is she?" he demanded when Anna finally stumbled through the door at midnight, exhaustion carved into every line of her face. Anna froze. "What are you doing here?" "What am I, Anna? Your daughter was with a stranger who could barely stay awake. What if something had happened? What if Lily had an asthma attack, Anne?" "Don't," Anna snapped, her voice sharp with defensive fury. "Don't you dare come into my home and judge how I raise my child." "I'm not judging, I'm worried." "No, you're controlling," Anna shot back, tears of frustration burning her eyes. "You swoop in with your money and your solutions, and you make me feel like I'm failing because I can't give Lily what you can give Oliver. That's not what this is about." "Then what is it about, Julian?" Anna's voice cracked. "Because from where I'm standing, you're just another person who thinks poverty is a moral failure, who thinks throwing money at problems makes them disappear. You think this is about money?" Julian's voice rose, matching her intensity. "I don't care about the money, Anna. I care about you, about Lily, about the fact that you're working yourself to death because you're too proud to let anyone help." "I don't need help," Anna screamed, and the words echoed through the small apartment, waking Lily in the next room. Silence crashed down. Julian's jaw worked, his hands clenched at his sides. "Yes, you do. We all do. That's what it means to be human, Anna. We need each other." "I needed my husband," Anna whispered, her voice breaking completely. "I needed him, and he died anyway, and I learned that the only person I can count on is myself. So forgive me if I don't trust that you won't disappear too." Julian stepped back like she'd struck him. "Is that what you think? That I'm going to abandon you? Everyone does eventually." "I'm not everyone." "Prove it," Anna challenged, her tears falling freely now. Prove you're not just playing savior until you get bored and move on to the next broken thing that makes you feel important. The words hung between them, poisonous and irrevocable. Julian's expression hardened, hurt flashing across his features before he locked it down. You know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe I was playing savior. Maybe I convinced myself this was about helping you when really it was just about making myself feel better for having more than I deserve. Julian. No, you wanted honesty. There it is. He turned toward the door, his voice cold now, distant. I'll have my assistant send you a check for whatever you need. That way you can keep your pride intact and I can stop pretending this was ever anything more than charity. That's not fair. Fair. Julian laughed bitterly. You just accused me of using you to feel important. But sure, I'm the one being unfair. He left without another word, the door closing with a finality that echoed like a gunshot. Anna stood alone in her apartment, Lily's soft crying drifting from the bedroom, and realized she'd just destroyed the only good thing she'd allowed herself to hope for in years. And she had no idea how to fix it. 5 days passed in silence. Julian threw himself into work, back-to-back meetings, conference calls that stretched past midnight, anything to avoid the hollow ache in his chest that showed up every time Oliver asked when they'd see Lily again. Soon, buddy, he'd say, lying through his teeth. Oliver wasn't fooled. Did you and Miss Anna have a fight? Julian paused, his fingers hovering over his laptop keyboard. Something like that. Are you going to say sorry? It's complicated. Oliver climbed onto his father's lap, his small hands framing Julian's face with a seriousness that didn't belong on a 6-year-old. Mommy used to say that grown-ups make everything complicated when it's really simple. If you love someone, you tell them. If you hurt someone, you say sorry. Julian's throat constricted. When did you get so wise? I miss Lily, Oliver whispered. And I think you miss Miss Anna. Julian closed his eyes, his son's words cutting through every defense he'd built. Yeah, buddy, I do. Then fix it, Dad. If only it were that simple. Across the city, Anna sat in Lily's room, watching her daughter sleep. The new inhaler Julian had insisted on buying weeks ago sitting on the nightstand, a constant reminder of everything she'd thrown away. The check had arrived 3 days ago, $10,000, enough to cover the lawsuit and then some. Anna hadn't cashed it. She couldn't. Because Julian had been right, she was drowning in pride, so terrified of depending on anyone that she'd rather sink than reach for the hand extended toward her. Her phone buzzed, a text from the neighbor, your shift starts in an hour. I can watch Lily. Anna typed back, thank you, then deleted it. Typed, actually, I need tonight off. Deleted that too. Finally, I quit. I'll pick up my last check tomorrow. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. Then she opened her contacts, scrolling to Julian's name, her thumb hovering over the call button. What would she even say? I'm sorry I pushed you away. I'm sorry I accused you of the worst possible motives. I'm sorry I'm so broken I don't know how to accept love anymore. But before she could spiral further, her phone rang. Julian's name lit up the screen. Her heart stopped. She answered, her voice barely a whisper. Hello. Anna. His voice was rough, strained, like he'd been wrestling with this decision for days. I need to say something, and I need you to just listen, okay? Okay. Julian exhaled shakily. You were right, about some of it, anyway. I did want to fix things because it made me feel useful, because after my wife died, I convinced myself that if I could just solve enough problems, make enough money, control enough variables, I wouldn't have to feel powerless ever again. He paused. But you were wrong about one thing. Anna gripped the phone tighter. What? You're not a problem to be solved, Anna. You're a person I care about, a person I admire, a person who fights harder than anyone I've ever met. And yeah, maybe I went about things the wrong way, maybe I pushed too hard or offered too much too soon, but I wasn't playing savior. His voice cracked. I was just trying not to be alone anymore. Tears streamed down Anna's face. Julian, I know you're scared, he continued. I know you've been hurt, and I know trusting someone feels impossible when everyone you've ever counted on has let you down. But I'm not going anywhere, Anna, not unless you tell me to. Anna sobbed, pressing her hand over her mouth. So I'm asking, Julian said quietly. Do you want me to go? Because if you do, I'll walk away, and I won't bother you again. But if there's even a chance you feel what I feel, if there's even a part of you that wants to try. I'm terrified, Anna whispered. Me too. What if we ruin this? What if the kids? What if we don't? Julian interrupted, echoing his words from weeks ago. What if this is the best decision either of us ever makes? Anna closed her eyes, standing at the edge of a cliff, every instinct screaming at her to retreat. But then she thought of Lily's laughter in Julian's penthouse, of Oliver's kindness, of the way Julian looked at her like she mattered, not because of what she could offer, but simply because she existed. "I'm sorry," she breathed. "I'm so sorry for what I said." "I'm sorry too," Julian said. "For pushing, for assuming." "Stop," Anna interrupted, a trembling smile breaking through her tears. "Can we just start over?" Julian's relief was audible. "Yeah, we can do that. Tomorrow," Anna said. "Can we meet tomorrow? All four of us." "Where?" Anna thought for a moment. "The park, Boston Common. Let's just be normal people for a day." "I'd like that." They stayed on the line, neither willing to hang up first, until finally Anna whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for answering the phone." The next morning, Boston Common was alive with autumn, leaves crunching underfoot, the air crisp and clean, families scattered across the grass like scenes from a postcard. Anna arrived first, Lily's hand clutched in hers, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Then she saw them, Julian and Oliver, walking toward her across the park, and the moment their eyes met, everything else fell away. Oliver broke into a run, launching himself at Lily with a hug that nearly knocked her over. "I missed you." Lily giggled, hugging him back just as fiercely. "I missed you too." The children ran off toward the playground, leaving the adults standing face to face. "Hi," Anna said softly. "Hi," Julian replied. For a moment, neither spoke, just stood there, drinking each other in like they'd been apart for years instead of days. Then Julian stepped forward, closing the distance, and pulled her into his arms. Anna melted into him, her tears soaking into his shirt. "I was so stupid." "You were scared," Julian murmured into her hair. "There's a difference." They held each other while the world continued around them, joggers passing by, dogs barking, children laughing. And for the first time in longer than either could remember, they felt whole. When they finally pulled apart, Julian reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. Anna's breath caught. "Julian, what?" "It's not what you think," he said quickly, opening it to reveal a simple silver bracelet. "I saw this in a shop window, and it reminded me of you, strong, unbreakable, beautiful in its simplicity." He fastened it around her wrist, his fingers gentle. "I wanted you to have something that wasn't about money or obligation, just something that says I see you." Anna touched the bracelet, her vision blurring. "It's perfect." Julian cupped her face, his thumbs brushing away her tears. "I meant what I said, I'm not going anywhere." "I know," Anna whispered. "And I'm going to work really hard on believing that. We'll work on it together." He kissed her then, soft and tentative at first, then deeper, like a promise neither of them had words for yet. When they broke apart, Oliver's voice rang out across the park. "Dad! Miss Anna! Come push us on the swings." They walked hand in hand toward the playground, where Lily and Oliver sat side by side, legs kicking in anticipation. As Julian pushed Oliver and Anna pushed Lily, their laughter mingling with dozens of other families, something remarkable happened. The billionaire and the struggling mother stopped being defined by their bank accounts. They became just what they'd always needed to be, two people choosing each other, two children finding siblings in unexpected places, two broken families discovering they fit together perfectly. 6 months later, the small chapel in Cambridge was filled with wildflowers, Lily's choice, and soft acoustic music that Oliver had picked because it sounds happy. Anna stood in a simple white dress, nothing extravagant, nothing that screamed wealth, just her, radiant and real. Julian waited at the altar, Oliver beside him in a tiny suit, grinning so wide his face might split. When Anna walked down the aisle, Lily scattering petals ahead of her, every person in that chapel felt it. The weight of two people who'd found each other not in spite of their brokenness, but because of it. The vows were brief, handwritten, raw. Julian spoke first. "I promise to never let you fight alone again, to catch you when you fall, to remind you every day that you are enough, exactly as you are." Anna's voice shook but held steady. "I promise to let you in, even when it's terrifying, to trust that love doesn't always end in loss, to build a life with you that our children will be proud of." When the officiant pronounced them married, Oliver and Lily cheered louder than anyone else. That evening, in the penthouse that now felt like a home instead of a monument to loneliness, the four of them sat on the floor eating pizza straight from the box, no fancy dinners, no pretense. "Tell me again how you met," Lily asked, cheese stretched between her fingers and her mouth. Oliver jumped in before either adult could speak. Dad saw your mom in a store and thought she was the bravest person ever. Anna laughed, ruffling his hair. That's not quite how I remember it. How do you remember it? Lily asked. Anna looked at Julian, her eyes soft. I remember being so tired I wanted to give up, and then this stubborn man refused to let me. Julian laced his fingers through hers. And I remember thinking I had everything, only to realize I had nothing that mattered, until I met your mom. Lily frowned thoughtfully. So you saved each other? Yeah, sweetheart, Anna whispered. I think we did. Later, after the children were asleep, Julian and Anna stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city lights flicker like fallen stars. Do you ever think about that day in the boutique? Anna asked. Every day, Julian admitted. I think about how close I came to walking past you, to teaching Oliver that wealth was the only thing worth pursuing. He turned to her. You changed my life. You gave me mine back, Anna said. You reminded me that asking for help isn't weakness, it's courage. Julian pulled her close, resting his chin on her head. What do you think our kids will remember most about us? Anna smiled. I hope they remember that love isn't about what you have, it's about what you're willing to give. What's the most powerful lesson someone unexpected ever taught you? Share your story below. I read every comment, and I'd love to hear yours.